Welcome to Lit Happens, Unpacking Senior English. I'm Adriel.
And I'm Belle.
We're experienced English teachers dedicated to supporting both new and experienced educators in a world in which we are often time poor, to empower our students to excel in their English studies.
If you're an English teacher, like us, navigating this curriculum, then this podcast is designed with you in mind. And our mission really is to break down the complexities by unpacking English nationally. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lit Happens, the podcast for New South Wales English teachers. Today is episode 45. We're going to be focusing on our written expression woes, improving written expression in formal academic writing, particularly for our Stage 6 students. More on that shortly. How are you, Adriel?
I am good, thank you, Bill. Only have a week or two left now in the school term, so looking forward to the downhill sort of run. Yeah, excited, but for our Stage 6 teachers, it's actually very busy at the moment with prepping for that last or first assessment task for Year 12. So, yeah, busy, busy, but excited about the break.
Yeah, lovely. It is that interesting time of the year because with majority of your classes, you're like moving on to more project-based things or group work or task things to keep them occupied and, engaged to the very end. And yet there's still the Year 12s where you're like, we don't stop, guys. We're like, go, go, go. And it's probably a little bit of a rude shock for them too. But normally term 4, they'd be used to down tooling, but it's good. I mean, everybody will be working on their, analysis and stuff for the common module assessment task in term 4. So I think this is a really, really timely episode. So, it is written expression rows. We're going to delve into the hurdles of writing and give you guys some really clear solutions and strategies that you can apply in your classrooms, in your worksheets, resources, and potentially even in your programs as well. So we're going to get into that shortly, but as always, we're going to start with our lit or quit for today. So our lit or quit is incorporating academic readings into all levels of Stage 6 English. Is that lit or is that a quit? It's a good one. It's a good one for this week.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. And it's very topic relevant here. I think it's definitely lit for all of our teachers. Students need to be engaging with these literary types of readings or academic sort of quality readings for many reasons. And we're going to sort of delve into this a little bit as we go through the episode today. But I definitely think it's lit that you have a consideration in embedding these, not just in like a week or not just at the beginning of your term, but littered throughout your readings. Like once a week, you're probably getting kids to look at some of these academic readings. Again, for various reasons, some that I'll just quickly touch on. First and foremost, kids see what good writing looks like, and then they can sort of model that and mold that into their own writing afterwards. But also, it's just good to sort of see the perspectives that are presented by some of these higher level, we would say, writers who have been crafting this type of writing over a period of time. I know recently I've been looking at The Merchant of Venice, for example, with our text and human experiences study in. Utilizing a website like JSTOR, for example. We got to see some of the reading of Stephen Greenbelt, which he's got a lot to do with not only The Merchant of Venice, but a lot of great readings on all of Shakespeare's work. So even for you as a teacher, it's definitely an eye-opening sort of perspective. Not only does it help our students, but as a teacher, it gives you some perspectives to actually go out and further, I guess, delve into some of the nuanced interpretations of the texts, which are done by academics. But yeah, look, that's a long story short. That's definitely lit for me.
Yeah, I like that. And I like to use those too, particularly with advanced classes. I know this question is in all levels of Stage 6 English. I think you could incorporate it in all levels. So I know that even when teaching standard, one particular text was Truman Show, and there were a lot of easy, accessible, fabulous readings that we could use with the class to get them to consider, those deeper mechanisms of that representation of that cinematic value, looking at, you know, the meta aspects, for example. So
Mm.
I
Mm.
think the trick with this is you scaffold it accordingly for your class. Like you
Yeah.
said, with an advanced class, I would love to just throw it at them and see what they think. And then, even
Mm.
like a flip learning and come back and discuss it. But you definitely can do it with a standard class. In that regard, when I've done it with a standard, that's more of a, you do it with them, you stop, you discuss, you highlight, you annotate, because there will
Mm.
always be students who want to be extended in any cohort.
Yeah.
And even students who might not necessarily want to be extended, right? They're going to benefit from that various and different interpretation. Because
Mm.
it's, I think what I love about those readers is all about having all those different voices and then getting their students to consider, in light of that, what do you think? Now, probably studies is the only cohort where I'm like, you wouldn't probably go there just because of the
Yeah.
language, accessibility wise. But look, potentially,
Mm.
if you found something or a paragraph or two, even depending on whatever text you're doing for studies, I think in the past, when I used to think about this academic reading, I would think like, oh, that's just an advanced thing. But if I thought about it more holistically, it's just an
Mm.
article. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
If we just
Mm.
say to the kids,
Mm.
we're just going to read this article about what this one
Yeah.
person thinks about this text. And I
Yeah.
think if you break it down, I found when I started doing that more recently, breaking it down that way, it
Mm.
made it
Mm.
so much more accessible. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love
Yeah.
it too. Um, and I loved all your great tips on where to find articles, because that's interesting. I
Mm.
find students are really struggling with this now because of the
Mm.
AI platform. Even within Google, they can't find
Yeah.
stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like
No.
they've
No.
kind of lost those skills of
Yeah.
opening, sorting, reading, thinking about what website might offer me the right info. So I think any extra guidance like you've suggested is just
Yeah.
fabulous. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. I
100%.
think it's lit too. We'd love to hear from our listeners though and see what they think as well.
Mm.
When we
Mm.
put posting up socials, yeah, comment,
Yeah.
email us, let us know what you think. Also, we're looking towards doing more episodes where we're answering more specific listener questions. So please engage. Please let us know if you have any topics or any questions about,
Yeah.
teaching, teacher life, English teaching, or just new scheme teaching, whatever it is. Please let us know, because we'd love to continue to develop content that's really specific for you
Yeah.
guys in the moment.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Should we get into the episode then today, Adriel?
Sounds good.
The
Sounds
written
good.
expression woes. Yeah, let's. Fabulous. All right, so the first question we want to ask you today is, because you're going to be our expert for today, you have, especially I know in the last 2 years, you've really ramped up, the specificity of your activities and resources in writing.
Mm.
So I think it's going to be really
Mm.
exciting for our listeners to hear all the beautiful things that you've been coming up with and using in your classroom. So today's first question is the common patterns and struggles that we see in our stage 6 writing. So what do you often see teachers are encountering in terms of these writing woes, and why?
Yeah. This is probably like a good question to frame why we're sort of talking about this in our episode today.
Definitely.
I know one of the biggest frustrations we're having at the moment, and I've had this over a period of time in however many years we've been teaching at the moment, but
Mm.
it feels like, every year you think, oh, yeah, surely like next year we're going to get, students that will have a little bit better, written expression as we do move forward. But goodness me, it seems to it's hit that sort of slippery slide, that slope, and it just gets worse and worse. And you sort of think,
Yeah.
goodness me, what is going on with these students? And I think one of the biggest things that we often see, one of the common patterns is students are very conversational in their tone. So they've sort of lost the art of the academic tone when it comes to formal
Mm-hmm.
writing, and we often see this
Yes.
expressed through their writing when they're developing an essay, when they're developing their creative pieces, when they're developing their discursive essays or persuasive responses. In any form of writing, we're just seeing this sort of creep in, and I know it's one of my bed bugs. It's a very large frustration, but then I also have to consider, like, these are students that, what are they, 17, 16, 17, 18, as they go through 11 into year 12. And I sort of look at myself, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, back in the day when your parents would sit you down and be like, all right, like, we obviously didn't have as many distractions as they do these days, but they'd be like, hey, read a book in your spare time. And you're like, oh, like, for me personally, it was something that was enforced on me, and I'm glad it was,
Mhm.
because now I do enjoy reading and understanding more about the
Mhm.
world. But it wasn't something that came naturally, as it does for some English teachers. I'm probably one of those
Mm.
weird ones that didn't necessarily enjoy reading from the get go, but have come to learn to appreciate it as we have moved on. But one of the struggles that we're sort of seeing with our students is because of the short nature in which they communicate with each other these days, through the different forms and mediums.
Yeah.
A sustained piece of writing is something that is very difficult for them to grasp. Um, so it's our role as teachers now to sort of consider not only like what we used to have, and we know some of the solutions, we know the tools, but it's like, how do we adapt this to improving our students' writing? Because I know this, just having sat through a little bit of HSC marking and talking with a few of my colleagues who have been in that space. The writing seems to get worse and worse every year, but there are glimmers of hope as well, in each cohort. Both standard, advanced, even some of the study students. Kids are smart. They're probably smarter than they used to be. It's just about accessing that. And honestly, it's about
Totally.
accessing um, how they can actually convey their ideas in this formal academic tone, or this manner, which sort of distinguishes between the colloquial conversational environment that they'll be having with their lads or their friends. Um,
Yeah.
Apologies for the colloquial language there, but it's
Mm.
one of those things that we will encounter quite a bit. And it comes down to a few things. I've just mentioned this. A lot of the social media influence now, so information these days is readily accessible. There's no thought or critical thinking behind. It's just basically type something up, quickly see what it says. And we see this with AI. Some students are becoming very,
Yeah.
very good with AI, for example. And even
Yes.
AI, a good teacher will be able to pick up the patterns, even when
Yes.
they say, things like, make this so it sounds like it's human, and embellish this so
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
a 12 quality piece of writing. Like, these are some of the prompts that our kids are probably coming up with these days. But even if we experiment with it as teachers, I mean, which I encourage our teachers to probably have a look at, so where this is coming from, you'll be able to
Yes,
pick
and
up on
see the
those
difference.
patterns. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%,
Mhm.
100%.
Mhm.
It's not as organic. So,
No.
what they would have spent taking, 3, 4 weeks to sort of write, now takes them 3, 4 seconds to pull up on an AI platform. And
Yes.
this is the conundrum, or the battle, or the challenge that we are facing as teachers. So, what are we looking at? Well, the key things in particular that I would say is, let's take the essay form, for example. In essay writing, students are not using that directive, high modality language. It's more just a quick little surface discussion a lot of the times. With their creative writing, similarly, it's just a recount. It's not really engaging with the form, as we prescribe in our teaching. Another sort
Mhm.
of issue or common thing that I sort of see is the sustained amount that students are writing. Like, they can't write
Mhm.
sustained
No.
amounts of formal academic. And then the last thing is tone. Tone's massive.
Yeah.
Remember, like a persuasive essay, it's a persuasive essay. So writing to form and understanding the nuances between the different forms, I think students are struggling, and these are the challenges on the chessboard that or the chess pieces that us as teachers, we do need to navigate. And as you sort of mentioned, I am starting to become more and more aware of these in my own pedagogy and my own teaching, which is just getting me to experiment with different things, which we'll touch on as we do move forward. But
Yeah.
whether it's successful or not, I'll let you know in a year's time, and we'll come back to the drawing board and we'll go
Mhm.
again. That's the beauty of teaching. It's like this big chess game. It's like every year you're going to get new pieces. Sorry, the same like amount of students, but each move will be different, because the pieces that you've been dealt will approach the learning very differently. It's a very big roundabout way
I
of
think
sort of
so.
saying, differentiated learning.
No, definitely. And I think you made some really, really good points about the environment that our students are in now, and that this is becoming an increasing problem. So, because the
Mm,
thing that I keep
mm,
thinking about, I don't know if you agree, but the thing that I can think about is well, they don't really have like any depth in what they're thinking either. Like there's no
Yeah.
critical thought there. And if I think about it, it's not because the student is not capable of it per se. I think it's a reflection of the instant gratification, the
Yeah.
passive consumption of content, that their brain naturally, has lost that skill to
Yeah.
think about what they're absorbing. Like we think about, what's the phrase that they call it, doom scrolling. Like how
Yeah.
many of them are spending hours a day doom scrolling? And if I was doing that hours a day every day, like I know you and I personally, we're only on socials to advertise some of our stuff here, but I actually find that I feel really like, I wouldn't say negative, but this idea that, I feel that my thoughts have gone down. Like I'm not actually
Yeah.
thinking about what's happening when I'm just, doing that.
Yeah.
And so I think when there is no thought, and you see that in their writing too. Why is it surface
Yeah.
level? Why is it lacking depth? Why is it lacking detail
Yeah.
or any, academic tone? Because then I think they're not actually thinking about it in that way, and therefore cannot actually express that in the written. And so as teachers, there are a lot of challenges, but the beauty of this episode today is, you're going to give us some really great suggestions on things that we can do, because I think differentiation here is huge. Modeling will be huge. And I know we've got a lot of great scaffolding ideas coming up. So I'd like to get into question 2 now then, Adriel. So start getting into the strategies. So because we've got, new stage 6 syllabus and all that coming up now, we're going to focus a bit more in this little segment on how could we program our units to improve our better written expression. So within our stage 6 programs and units of work, what are some like activities or tips or strategies or ways that we can sequence learning to encourage students to write with more academic purpose?
Yeah. Again, I know we're talking about stage 6. This is a learned trait that needs to be sort of looked
Yes,
at or incorporated into your stage 4 and 5 programs as well.
absolutely.
So just before I sort of clarify, or just have a clarifying statement here, sometimes if students have 4 years of just, and then you hear oh, it's all right, I'm going to lock in, sir, for stage, for 11 and 12, and I'm going to improve things. And it's like, well, it's a behavior it's a practice that you need to have developed. It's a skill, that's probably the word, that you need to have developed and practiced consistently throughout all of junior school. And then moving into stage 6, you've got those fundamentals as a foundation there to go on. So I think as
Yes.
teachers, it's very, very important for us to go back to, keeping in mind a lot of these skills that are being addressed in the new syllabus that we've recently had, that we go back to the basic principles, writing and reading, like reading and writing, the important sorts of things that you need to embed into your programs. Because a lot of the times we probably just want to get through certain activities, do like fun activities here or there, group things, this, discussion, that. But if your students are not writing, or if they are not engaging with reading, um, sometimes it may take a teacher 3-4 weeks to actually just go through a novel, and that will have better results for a student than someone who might just quickly say, "All right, guys, go home and read this, and then come back in." And because let's be honest, like we
Yeah.
said, instant gratification, as if they're going to read a 200-page novel.
No.
You know,
No.
the first question
That's right.
they will ask is, is there like an abridged version, or is there a quicker version or video that I can watch? These are the questions that we often get. So we need to
Yeah,
model
that's
that.
right.
What
Yeah.
is that appreciation? Like I know at our school, in my new school here, or where I'm working, with year 7, every fortnight they have maybe a lesson or two where they'll take year 7 into the library to borrow a book,
Yes.
and then they'll spend that whole lesson reading
Yes.
with the kids. So the
Yes, we
teacher
do
will
that at my
model good
school too.
reading. Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
fantastic, But I think one of the common things that we as teachers will probably look at is, well, but I've got such and such a student, or 4 or 5 of them that just won't engage. Hey, the more you stick to it, the more they understand, like, the patterns and the culture that you're developing. You'll remember, you're the one that dictates the culture in your classroom. You're the one that writes
Yes.
these programs, and they're going to start to see, okay, cool, like it's a losing battle that I'm fighting. If they don't want to sort of engage with it, that's their loss. You gotta sort of make that relevant. So we need to start to engage with the programs in terms of making writing relevant, making reading
Mhm.
relevant, getting kids to
Mhm.
understand the importance of it. Like I said, when I was younger, I'd sort of be forced to do it. But we had no other choice in the sense that we didn't have as many distractions as kids have these days. So it's like, all right,
Yes.
cool. Like I'll just read a book, you know. I remember sometimes
Yeah.
you go to the doctors on those sick days, and every doctor's surgery would have like a Reader's Digest
Yeah, yeah, those
booklet, you know,
magazines,
those
it's so
old
true.
magazines.
Yes,
And you
yes,
didn't have a phone to sort of sit on and watch. So
yes.
I would
So you
I would
flip through the
often read,
mags, yeah.
yeah, the
Yes.
mags,
You're
and
so
it would
right, I
be
forgot
cool.
about that, but you just unlocked
Yeah,
a, like, millennial memory there.
100%,
So true.
100%. But, like, kids
Yeah.
don't have that these days, so it's about us sort of engaging with students and sort of asking them, like, "Hey, what is it that, reading like, what do you think reading actually does for you?" You know? And you'll start to see
Mm,
when they come to stage 6 in our programs, especially at the beginning of year 12, once they've done, like, the prelim and maybe their results weren't as good as they expected because it's a different level of English, they
mhm,
get to this stage where it's like, "Oh, okay, actually reading is important. Writing is important." So they'll get to that stage, and as you and I know, we've been discussing a few sort of students that we've come across, they'll know all of that, and yet they will still neglect reading, and it's like, that's the puzzle
yes,
at the moment that I'm and I sort of that part of the Rubik's Cube that I'm still trying to solve a little bit,
yes,
you know? It's that
yeah,
old adage there, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, and we need to
absolutely.
somehow engage with that relevance. And look, if there are any listeners out there that have effective strategies in relation to that, like what you guys have programmed into your stage 6 programs, as I sort of clarified at the beginning, it's this process of just trying new things, testing new things. A lot of the times, like I said before, I'd stick to my old ways and try and get kids like shove it down kids' throats in a way, but it doesn't
Mhm.
work these days. You know, as teachers, we need to continually adapt and we need to work through things. So one of the things that I do at the moment is, we chunk or we make sure we have like short, sharp reading activities or extracts that are important from the novel that you might be reading, or
Mhm.
bits and pieces that you can say tell the story of the whole plot line in Shakespeare's work. I've been
Definitely.
encouraged by this because now I know at the place that I'm working at the moment, we've only got an 8-week term, which means reading
Mm.
through the whole of a play and then getting through like the teaching. It's very hard. So being
Yes, of
advanced
course.
students in this instance here, I've said to the kids, well, this time that we read through it in class is like a second or third reading. You
Yeah,
guys should have, as a
yeah.
prerequisite, read this before. But one of the encouraging things is the kids are so engaged with it because not only the enthusiasm you show as a teacher, but I offered lunchtime groups now to go through the awesome Act 4, the trial scene.
Mhm,
We love it. We love it when
mhm.
we're talking about the Merchant of Venice. And I have legit had the last 2 days of last week, so Thursday and Friday, kids came in on a lunchtime, like Thursday, Friday, and they were excited. Like I had out of my 19 kids in my class, I probably had 16 of them up ready to read and wanting to read more and more of it. And it's like, I have to go back and think, well, what was it that I did? Um,
Mm,
or what was it that engaged the students? Now, will this work
mm.
next time? Will it not? I don't know. But we want to sort of get them engaging
Find
with this
things.
for reading,
Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah.
how can we program this into our unit? It's having more and more activities that are based around reading and writing, the practical skills
Yes,
there.
yes.
Whatever they may be, you just need to be enforcing that, whether that be your do now or your silent starters, or if you've got a longer period like 80 minutes, have 2 or 3 writing activities embedded within that lesson. Doing writing workshops. Again, my head teacher, wonderful, wonderful idea at the school that we're working at. We're doing like a writing lab, or an English lab, I should say, where we get the whole cohorts, both advanced standards. They have their separate sort of workshops, and we come together as a whole cohort and do a lecture style sort of writing workshop, or an analysis workshop, and it's these sorts of things that we just got to
Mhm.
experiment with and try in order to
Definitely,
engage our students. But yeah, look, you can see I'm
definitely.
getting carried away a little bit there, but yeah, there's some
That's
ideas there.
okay. Yeah, definitely some really, really valuable ideas, and I think that important few of the important things was making sure that you're doing it in the earlier stages, because that's where the foundation gets built, and then getting more in the nitty gritty. I know what I've seen other schools do, programming wise, for writing, is some of them are doing kind of like having a writing journal across the year. And then in each kind of unit of work, they shift between the different writing styles. And then therefore that becomes like little formative tasks that they have. And even just when they're getting to the end assessment, whatever that writing task is and the specific writing style, is making sure then they're offering weekly or fortnightly, like either questions or activities or styles that are helping them build to the end result of that assessment task. So, for example, one school was doing a novel for close study, standard module B. And so because it's module B, they know roughly the essence of what the essay question will be. And so they backward map from that. So like you said, picking key excerpts or vignettes from their chosen novel that is going to emphasize a big selection of the key ideas across the text, and then making sure that there is a specific question or activity that they can extract from that vignette to build the analysis, that then when they get to the mock essay question and then the actual essay task, they have all this analysis and ideas ready, and then it's about them just kind of reconfiguring that to address a question. So they're really, because same thing, they're saying we ask our students to read it, but are they really reading it? Probably not. But we know we've focused on certain sections, we can build that engagement. So I think your ideas are fabulous. All right, let's move on to question 3 then, please. Okay, so question 3 for you today, Adriel, is, so why do you think then students are struggling with writing in this academic tone? I mean, I know we touched on it a little bit in question 1 with the overall writing rows, but what do you think are the specific aspects that you have seen that students are struggling with in terms of their academic writing and, let's say, their persuasive or analytical writing?
I feel like students are scared of failure. That's probably like a big thing. So they want to write that perfect thing first and foremost. And then we all know as teachers, it's not possible.
No.
I used this example the other day with my class. I said, you got to think about, for example, you're writing. We've been constructing introductions. We've been constructing, body paragraphs as they prep for their first assessment task. And I said, a lot of you, before you even get into your writing, you're already thinking about failure. Oh, what if this is wrong? What if this is wrong? Or it doesn't sound right. Or it doesn't sound good. Before they even put anything on the page, they're scared to put it on the page because it's
they are.
It's going to be wrong. So why should I write this? And it's like, we have to try and challenge that idea there, because it's one of those good things. And one of the good strategies that I would say for a teacher to make use of is maybe write something on the board for them, a teacher guided paragraph. Maybe using some sentence, actually we'll get to the sentence stems in a second, but write something just to show them, even with your first time. We can put our pride aside a bit as teachers, but show them that writing isn't perfect first time through all the time. But I said it's a process of refinement, and then you might spend that lesson just refining your paragraph, or 30 minutes, 20 minutes of that lesson dedicated to refining it, and get that feedback from your students. What do you think? Is this an effective thesis? We follow a GST method for our introduction writing at our school at the moment, which is, a general sort of statement, then you move into the specifics, and then you move into your thesis. And again, whatever platform you're using for your school, make sure you use it. I've had to adjust to this in my new setting here, and it's working. It's good. But again, it's you have to try and model what failure looks like for students. Throw your pride away, so that they can be encouraged to write as well, because I think they're just scared. They're scared to write. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is the time sort of aspect, where it's because they haven't engaged with this sort of structured writing over stage 4 and 5, and this is where that programming question comes back into mind. They're not used to, this, or they're overly structured. So, for example, they're writing a peel paragraph or a pedal paragraph.
It's very robotic or mechanized. Yeah. It's almost like two extremes.
So it's a fine balance that you sort of have to mold for them. But I used this analogy the other day. I said, guys, your writing's like a jigsaw puzzle. Think about this. You've got a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And, let's say a lot of those 1,000-piece puzzles, a lot of pieces look like they should fit in a certain space.
Yeah.
So it looks
Yes.
like it's the right size, it looks like it's the right color, whatever, and you put it in to that piece and it just doesn't fit. So what do? Do you throw the whole puzzle away after that? Some people may, I don't know, but you don't get anywhere. You don't get that sense of accomplishment. And this is what some kids do. They give up with their writing. But I said this:
Yeah.
the person that continues to just try new pieces, they look for it, they find new pieces, and they sort of put it in there. Oh, actually, this one doesn't fit, and then they go back to the drawing board. They come back, put another one in. Eventually, you find the right thing. And this is where we're
Yes.
starting to address things like our tone, our language, the complexity of our language. But it's a good example to use for your students because that is the process. It's not something that happens instantly. It's something that takes time to refine. And it may look like, like I said, you've used AI. It may look like you've done a really good bit, but it just doesn't fit. As teachers, we can see this. And
You can see
I think,
it's so obvious.
yeah, exactly right. And like that's an AI example. But even, once you overcome that fear of failure, they don't want to spend the time in refining their writing. So it's like, again, we have to go back
Mhm.
to, well, why are you doing this? What's it going to benefit you with? I
Mhm.
had a wonderful text which I shared with you of a student that I taught in 2018 who sent me a message earlier this year. And he was a student that loved the sciences and the maths, and they'd always have that argument with you. This was in my standard class. Hey, sir, like, what am I going to do with English anyway? Like, I don't even need to read or write or whatever. I'm like, okay, first and foremost, you're wrong there, but we're not going to argue with people like this. But
Mm.
it's I get this message from him saying, he's actually studying to be a science teacher, but he's picking up like units in university for literature, and it's like,
Mm.
so it just still calls me sir. This is quite a while down the track now. It was one of my first few years. It's like I got an 84% or something in my last English literature unit, and I really, really wanted to just thank you and share this with you because of the passion that you showed in terms of engaging with reading, engaging with writing. It's really inspired me. So even though it's not my KLA per se, I'm loving reading and writing now. That appreciation, and
Mhm.
I'm sure we both had countless, and teachers, our listeners will have had countless messages like these. We sort of have to sort of think, okay, you are making that difference. You are, encouraging the process. So even if it doesn't happen now in their HSC years, even down the track, like what are you inspiring kids to do? Because that's the long run. That's the long goal, you know, in terms of their
Mm.
vocations later
Mhm.
on, et cetera, et cetera. I know we get consumed by our KPIs in terms of the results that we have when we look at like our data at the end of the year and whatnot. But I'm telling you right
Mm.
now, the lifelong skill of critical thinking, reading, writing, these are things that kids will, when they mature a little bit, as I have matured, I'm still a big kid. You just come to appreciate, like I just said, I appreciate
Yeah.
that my parents used to say, hey, go read a book. Now I do.
Yeah.
When I was younger, this is boring, like for me. And as I've sort of come to realize the real life applications of critical thinking, just being able to see thought and write properly and whatnot, it's just so, what's the word, satisfying, you know?
Absolutely. And I think that
Mm,
what a lovely story and a lovely thing for your student to do like years later down the track. I mean,
yeah.
we have, many of our students might think of us, but for them to actually reach out is really, really lovely. And like
Mm,
it's a testament to your passion, but it's also a
yeah.
testament to the fact that you had obviously, drilled in that student that
Yeah.
the language skills you're picking up now, sure, you see it short term, it's for my HSC, but it's actually
Yeah.
going to be a lifelong power that you have because
Yeah.
anybody who can communicate in this world has power. And so I
Yeah.
think the students are struggling with this academic tone because they're not
Mm,
seeing it represented in their world as much as maybe
yeah.
we used to. Because let's be very honest here, the way that social media works and
Mm,
advertising, everything works, it is deliberately, I guess, dumbed down or
yeah.
simplified because it's got to
Yeah.
go out so quickly, right? Whatever, everything is so instant, it has to be processed quickly. And so they're not
Yeah.
seeing really academic tone and they're not reading. So if they're not reading, they're
Mm,
definitely not seeing academic tone. And
yeah.
so I think the model, the thing is like as English teachers, we have to strike that balance between we need to be straightforward for the students,
Yeah.
but we also need to model for them the way that our
Mm.
expressions should sound. And so I would encourage teachers to think about as well, what words are you using? What expressions are you using in the
Yeah.
classroom? Weekly meta language lists or
Mm.
unit meta
Mm.
language lists, starting as early
Mm.
as possible, so students
Mm.
understand the necessity of these words, because let's be honest, their vocabulary is quite short at the moment in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how many times have you in the last couple of years put a word on the board or just written it and thought that's just an
Mm.
everyday word? And multiple
Mm.
students will say, what does that word mean? Like, I know I
Yeah.
had a year 8 class last year, lovely kids, tried really hard, very
Mm.
engaged. And sometimes I would have to do straight dictionary lessons,
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah.
so engaged because they never look at a dictionary anymore.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
so engaged because words that I thought were really basic or accessible, we would have seen on NAPLAN lists, are
Mm.
just
Mm.
not in their vocabulary
No.
anymore. And so,
No. And why would they have to when, you've got access
yes,
to, like, it's that
yes,
tension that we face with teachers. It's like, why? You gotta get them to understand their why, it's one of those
yeah,
terms that
I
we
love that.
hear in, like, the workshops and whatnot, and it's so true, though. It's so true. Like, why are you reading this? Why are these words important? And then the crazy thing is this, like, we used to have to go through that process of looking at the dictionary, searching it up and whatnot.
Yes,
Now,
yes,
like, we go through a book and, "Oh, what's the" I get that question, "What's that mean, sir?" So you've got the internet in front of you, look it up, write it down, like,
yeah.
but
They don't think to do that. Yeah, it's
no,
not a
no, there's that
mm,
disconnect, you know what I'm saying? So this is
definitely,
why I suggested
definitely.
at the beginning of the episode, we actually have students that are more capable, yet I think it's a laziness. I'm not too sure, but I think
Mhm.
they don't wanna be
Yeah,
sustained, in terms of it's
yeah,
just everything needs to be done quick, 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 quick.
absolutely.
Um,
I think because everything is at their fingertips, I would
yeah,
imagine if I put myself in their shoes, I would be like that too. Like, because it's such an
that's right.
easy, I can get that like this, and that
Yeah,
almost backfires because you can, but because it's so easy, you don't even bother, and it's this perpetual
that's right.
cycle. But I love
Yeah.
what you said about getting them to understand the
Mm,
why it's
mm,
important to move beyond that kind of surface level. So I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Shall we talk about maybe some strategies next
Let's
then,
go.
Adriel? I
Yep,
know you've got
that sounds good.
a great list. Yeah. So
Yeah,
what strategies then have you used to address
yep.
academic tone challenges in the classroom? What are some things that are working for you?
Yeah, I think, the
And
the best thing at the moment is, yeah, the best thing at the moment, we'll go into, like, with scholarly readings in a second, as we move into
mhm,
our next little question, but I think the most practical thing that I'll tell our listeners today is make use of sentence stems. I know you've mentioned this
yes.
before, but break this down. Like, I know, for example, the other day I had, like, introduction scaffolds, as I was saying, with my writing. So you might give them a list of 10 or so sentence stems, like the plug and play sort of thing. So you're literally,
Mhm.
it goes against our very essence and our being, because what we're used to, and we often have this discussion, it's like, our teachers would be like, here's the work, go do some research, see you later in 2 weeks, come
Yeah.
back with some
But
polished
that's
quality
not the
piece of writing.
environment we're in now, is it? Yeah.
It's
So
it's
we've got
it's
to,
a very different environment. Yeah,
yeah,
you have to adapt, you have to scaffold, you have to show them, because they haven't got some of the skills that we might have had, as I said, growing up,
absolutely.
because of the lack of
Absolutely.
distractions that we had. So sentence
Hmm.
stems, man, definitely they help. So depending on how you guys
Game
format your
changer.
introductions, they are 100% a game changer. So I told you, just mentioned before, we had, like, a GST method. Now, this is where you can have a bit of an ethical use of AI, as a
Hmm.
student, as a teacher. I'm not just saying go into whichever AI platform you use and just say, "Hey, give me some sentence stems." No, you need to feed it
Mm.
directly, and you need to feed it what you
Yeah.
want, what examples of good writing looks like. So you will feed that in. I say that's important. So the reason I say make use of AI is because what you can do in 20 minutes using AI, I know the irony here, and I'm being paradoxical in terms of, what we're talking about, the writing process.
Mhm.
But again, we're just using AI to build a framework, so a resource for our students. Like I said, when you
Yes.
fed it in particular sentence stems, so you might say, in my GST method, what are 10 general statements that students can use pertaining to a particular question, with the focus on
Mhm.
certain concepts or ideas.
Yes.
And then, as a precursor, when you give these sentence stems to students, don't just say, like, these are a base statement. You need to use them and adapt them. This is just to give you
That's
guys a
right.
little bit of thought. That's what a
Yes.
STEM is.
Yes.
It's not just a
Yes.
plug and play. It's, oh, look, you might start off with a plug and play with the sentence STEM. That's fair
Yes.
enough.
Uh-huh.
But then the next phase of that refinement will then just be, okay, now make this your own. Because now they see
That's
what
right.
good writing and tone looks like. Then the
That's right.
next thing is, okay, can we make this our own? So it's no longer just
Mm.
here's the writing and they come up with a conversational tone. It's
You're
let's
structuring them on that path. Yeah.
That's right. So I think that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest tip that I'm going to give the listeners today is sounds so simple. Sentence stems are so important. And
They
you
are
can make them so
amazing.
simple. Yeah. So
But you're
so good.
so right because yeah, sorry.
No, you go on, go on.
N No, I love that because, like, what you said, you're basically differentiating because just as you said, you might have a student whose academic skills are really low and at a really
Yeah,
base level that they need to plug and play with that sentence stem. And then
yeah,
you might have an in between where you've got a kid who's not entirely lacking those skills but
yeah,
just needs maybe that guidance, and
yeah.
then you might have students who look at that and go, that's a great visual, and now here is my version. And I'm sure
That's
you
right.
would agree, over time of using all those
Yeah,
stems, the students, because it's a process and they're building, most of them will get to a point where they no longer really need them because they've
that's
developed.
right.
But it's
That's
it's
right.
the perfect starting point, and you're spot on. Like, I love what you say, but we have to be realistic with where our students are at versus where we wish
Mm,
they were at, because
yeah,
it's just,
yeah,
if we're functioning off of, I they should be able to do this, like, we're just going to
yeah.
be beating our head against a wall every day.
100%.
So
That's right.
I mean,
You're
it
not
might
really
be
addressing the
simple, but
root.
it's huge. No,
Yeah, you're not.
that's right. And you're doing that with these strategies here.
Yeah. I think this is that important thing, and it's very simple. I don't think we need to sort of talk too much more, and I'm sure we've embedded this into our little resources that we are providing you guys as well. Like, how do we frame some of these sentence stems
Mhm,
for listeners?
mhm.
So if you're keen on these, like the way that Bell and Manny do here, or Adriel does here, that's my surname for those that don't. No, but you know jump into our resources to help support us. We are trying to sort
Mhm.
of just give practical tips, I think, in this sense. What are the framework for some of these things? And I'm telling you right now, if you get the kids in a silent starter, maybe a 10-minute just start do now activity at the beginning of your lesson, sentence frameworks, and like again, you need to model it. It's not just here's your sentence stems and go use it. It's again, be ready to write on the board with them. I'm a big proponent. Whatever you're writing on your iPads, your whiteboards, some of us may still be writing with chalk and blackboards. Let me know if that's still the case. We'll have to have a talk with the department there or whichever organization you're with. But I, I think
Yeah.
in particular, like we are teachers. We need to model it. We have to teach it, and teaching is multifaceted. So show them how to use the scaffold. Don't just here's your worksheet, off you go.
Do
It's
it
a
with
different
them.
clientele. Yeah, it's a different clientele we have now. So I think that's important. And I'm going to
Mm,
talk a little bit about the next tonal challenge or the strategy, I guess, when we go into our next
mhm.
question, which we might
Yeah.
sort of explore this a little bit further in.
Yeah, sounds good. So let's get into that final question then. So what you're actually going to give us now is some academic, how we could use these academic readings
Mm,
to enhance the reading expression. So assume it's not just let's read them, but let's actually look at them as a model and how we might
look at
use
them.
things to then deepen our
That's
own
right.
writing. Yeah.
That's right. Now, I am just going to say this right from the get go. I know that we have listeners from a various range of backgrounds and
Mhm,
different sort of teaching settings. So
mhm,
I'll start off with people that might be, I mean, I'm in a new setting at the moment in this season of my life, and our school actually has access to JSTOR, which I think a lot of the history teachers have definitely championed in their own KLA. But
mhm,
as English teachers, that's a fantastic starting point for us because it is just a base of academic journals and writings that are readily available. Now, we can't download them, but they're available online. So fantastic stuff there for students to look at, teachers to engage with, to inform your own teaching and pedagogy as well. But the reason that we engage with these sorts of writings and academic sort of readings is because we see what good writing looks like. Now,
Yes.
the old saying, monkey see, monkey do. I'm not calling anyone a monkey, so just clarifying this, but we have this old saying here, which is so true, because when people see things, we like to mimic it. This is what students will often ask us, hey, can you give us an example? They don't say that to us. They're like, sir, what should I improve on? Can you rewrite this for
Mm-hmm.
me? But what they're trying to sort of say is, hey, what's an example of what
What
this
should it
might
look
look
like?
like?
Yeah.
You have the blueprint there with a lot of these academic journals. Now, it's not just a case of, hey guys, jump on and maybe do your own research. I will say, as a teacher, for advanced and standard, I know we sort of discussed this, our top standard candidates should technically be in advanced English. So if you want them to be doing really well, your band 5s and 6s in
Yeah.
standard English, they need to be engaging with
Um,
academic
yeah.
reading, because it will show them what a formal academic tone looks like. Now, here's an example that I've been telling my students. The reason I get you guys to engage with these types of readings is not because I expect you to write at this level, because remember, these are university quality pieces of writing.
Yeah. Yes.
Often written by people that have been writing for a long time, well researched, well versed in their topic and subject area, which you can highlight to students. Hey, know your text inside out.
Yeah.
In the time that we're looking at. But I think the important thing to consider here is this. They'll be like, well, why are we looking at something that's up here, sir? Yeah. When maybe a band 6 might be like here. Because let's be honest, they're looking at their first draft in the HSC. But what I say is, if you're looking up here, let's say you don't work to that level, what happens? If you have a bad day on the HSC, you come down to the band 6 level. You're not working up towards the band 6 level in terms of your writing. So it's a good strategy to use for your students, because they might be like, well, sir, I can't do this at the moment. Yeah, that's fair enough. You're not in uni. But why would we model things off something that is just here when you can model
Yeah.
at a higher level? And I think that is the main purpose for a lot of these readings. Now, again, JSTOR is a paid version. Your local libraries, make use of them. They've got online sections.
Yes,
Go
they
into your
do.
libraries, ask them for the academic, and that's free. I'll say that.
Particularly
Just
the
a little bit.
ones, the big
Yeah,
council, yeah, your Liverpool and your
exactly.
Bankstown and that, they actually have really good catalogues online.
Lots of resources, and then the librarians are very, very willing to help as well when it comes to this sort of stuff. They run study workshops. They have people coming in, so they're well versed in this sort of stuff. And then,
And your
like again, simple
classroom,
things like
your
yeah,
school librarians would be chomping at the bit to help you do this. Yeah,
exactly right. And then also you've got Google Scholar, which is the basic
yeah,
sort of thing, but it's got available it's actually got lots of PDFs there which you can access. Now, again, when you use this as a teacher, you're not just giving them a whole 17 or 70 to 100 page academic reading. You need to read through it, and you need to see what is
yeah.
relevant.
Mhm, mhm.
Like I remember last or 2 years ago, our old head teacher, she's like, "Oh, what about this Othello? I think it was something to do with Othello." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And I actually bought it that time, but it was about 2,000 pages worth of just academic readings, and just like Shakespeare's works there. I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to
Yeah.
give all of this to the kids," but
No,
I
you're
found what
right,
was
you have to
relevant.
disseminate. Mm. But
Yeah,
that's
what was
guidance too,
relevant.
and that's differentiation
Yeah,
too. You're picking the most accessible parts because you know where your students are at. So that's fabulous. What a great
exactly.
strategy.
Ex-
Mm.
exactly. So make use of that academic reading, because again, monkey see, monkey do. Okay, that's I'm just going to use it out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's allowed to be used these days. I apologize if it's not, but as you know, Bill, I'm a different human being these days. So, but that's honestly what is being
Monkey see,
used.
monkey do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. That's what we do. As humans, is innate within us. When we see something good, we want to model it. So why not
Definitely.
model something that's up here
Yes.
rather than just down here?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Love that.
look, there are some
I love that.
fantastic things that we have. I'm sure there's so much more that we can talk about. I've already gone over time,
Oh.
um, but
We could talk, yeah, because there are so many accessible things. But I think what the thing that you're highlighting is you have to work with the group at the time that you have
yeah,
them, have a sense of what kind of their shortfalls are, and then bridge the gap with specific activities. Like, for example, that group is struggling with introductions. So you've gone and you've
yeah,
devised a specific strategy for that. So I
yeah,
think you've done a really good job here in not only covering what the struggles are and maybe where they're coming from, because I think as teachers, if we can understand that, we're better prepared to then produce specific strategies to counter those things. And you've also offered some really, straightforward, accessible, but also very impactful strategies. And I know that all teachers everywhere who are constantly struggling for time would be really appreciative of all the great suggestions that you've made for today. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to finish on before we wrap up? Thank you.
Honestly, I think, it's like I prefaced at the beginning of the app. I said, I'm suggesting some of these things and I'll use them. They might fall flat on my face, or, they might work. And then again, every year, things change. We adapt, we differentiate. That's what I love about teaching. That's what I enjoy about going into the classroom. And this is what you guys should enjoy with your stage 6 classes. Like, we can get so caught up with just being, we need to get through this, we need to get through this. And there are pressures. I'm in a very fortunate space at the moment where, I have a wonderful faculty, a wonderful collegiality between my team. So I really understand this, that there are times when, things are hard. As you know, Belle, like for my current season, it is far better than maybe a few years ago, who knows? But like, it's one of those things that we need to go back to what is the core of our teaching. I know even in the bad seasons that we're having, in the busyness of life and teaching, I truly appreciated just going into the classroom and inspiring, hopefully young people to do well, not only in English, not only with their results, but just enjoy the process of learning, and that is those valid sort of life lessons that we have as teachers that we can bestow upon our students. So lots of hopefully things that are practical for our listeners. Use them. Don't come and shoot the messenger later on if they don't work. Again, like I said, maybe tell me, hey, I've tried that, it hasn't worked. But we're more than willing to listen. We've got ears to hear. I love it when people do come in and just give me ideas, because I'll be one of those people that try it. I mean, the other day we had our drama teachers put on a production of Macbeth, which, by the way, also is fantastic. But we had the principal in there, and at the end of it, it's like, what did you think? Adriel, that's fantastic. And as soon as I walked out, I had a bunch of my 12 kids there, as we've just been reading through the Merchant. I said, hey guys, that is how we're going to be performing the Merchant of Venice, And I said, our principal here, I've invited him into our next lesson as well, so he's going to come in, and I love it. I love it. But it's one of those things that you enjoy your teaching, where you're not scared to invite people into your classroom, and you're not scared to fail, because that's how you grow. And so you grow as a teacher, and that's something that we can show our students. Failure isn't the end. Failure is actually the start of growth. Because you look at new strategies afterwards. Well, how do I approach this differently now? And this is what we need to be doing as teachers with addressing written expression, or those written expression woes as per episode, moving forward. But yeah, look, I've talked a lot, and I continue to talk. So I'll let you take the reins, and maybe give our listeners a little bit more of the roundup there.
No, thank you so much. No, I think you've given a lot of teachers some extra food for thought, because when we're so busy and tired with new units and programming, we just want to kind of get things and reuse things, and that's obviously we're big proponents of, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. But I think you do have to think about, well, what are some strategies or ways that I used to teach that perhaps are not really working anymore with the current environment with our students? And look, I mean, that social media ban is coming in. I don't know if that's going to be successful or not. And it'll be interesting to have this conversation in 2 years' time and see if that has made a difference with our youngsters. But I think that the nature of the environment, we have to work with them, and using tools that are at our disposal to help us. Like, we are strapped for time. There's no reason why as a teacher you can't use, the New South Wales Department of Education has their own AI platform, New South Wales EduChat. So they've acknowledged that there is a space for this to save people time. But I think the key takeaway is it has to be deliberate, it has to be impactful, and it has to be done with purpose. And everyone listening can hear how connected you are with your students and really thinking about on a day-to-day level, because we could just run through a program, but you're actually thinking about how am I adapting this and differentiating to meet my students where they are, so that you are giving them all that you can give them, and giving them those tools to, be as strong as they can be and have that. Language is power. And I think if we go back to that purpose with these kids, you're doing all the great things. And I know that our listeners are going to be so thankful. So thank you so much, Adriel.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Take care, everyone. Until next time. Bye.
See you guys.